rolling?
Let's get started.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us in person and online today. My name's Brittany. I'm the coordinator for the Growing Master Gardener Volunteer Program. And today we have Tracey Srock. Tracey is a Master Gardener. She's been a Master Gardener since 2012. She is a florist and a baker and a fitness instructor and a vegetable garden grower. She wears many hats, but today she's going to be talking about flower preservation, drying, pressing, and who knows what else. Take it away, Tracey.
All right, welcome. So glad you're here with us today. So why even do any kind of flower preservation? What's the purpose of it? Well, bottom line for me is I love flowers, and we have a long winter. So flower preservation is a fun way to bring flowers into your home or give them as a gift in the winter that you've spent some time preserving, making something as a gift, hanging something on a wall. And a lot of them can be your own flowers that you grew or purchased. And so it's a fun way to do all that. It's a little trial and error. I'm going to try and eliminate some of that for you today through trials and errors and see if that can help you start. The way I like to teach is in a very practical way. So I'm not going to give you a lot of scientific terms. I'm not going to give you a lot of chemicals to use. I'm going to give you ways to use the flowers that you have in your yard or that you purchased with things around your home to be able to use them in the winter. So let's start in first of all, flower drying. So we'll go, and I believe you can ask questions in the chat, and Brittany will answer as we go along, or I'll answer them at the end, whatever we end up doing. So what is often now called everlasting flowers? It's not necessarily dried flowers or it's pressed and pounded, but that they're everlasting. And that's kind of a fun way to think about flowers, especially because we know flowers aren't really everlasting, but they are in this sense. So it's fun to call them that. They're easy to dry and they can last for a long time. However, they can be really fragile. So we want to take that into consideration. All right, let's continue on. So here's some specifics about first how to dry the flowers, how to get them. Especially if you're growing them yourself. So you want to cut them in the morning. The reason is in the morning, they are the least stressed. They are the most hydrated. They are in the best condition. So you want to cut them in the morning, but I would also say cut flowers before the sun is on them, before that even happens. I'm not saying cut them in the dark. I'm just saying before the direct sun is on those flowers. Then what you want to do is you want to take all the foliage off your stem. And most of the times you can just do that with your hand. The purpose is because water is going to those leaves. As you know, when the plant doesn't have enough water, those leaves are wilted. And so we're just going to take that off and eliminate that step for that flower to dry out. Then what you want to do is you want to create some bundles, depending on how many you have. It doesn't have to be the same kind of flower, although it's nice to hang them that way. But you want to create bundles of 10 to 12. If you only have a couple stems at a time that are blooming, that's fine. Just do a couple stems, but don't make huge stems because it's going to take a lot longer to dry and it probably won't be as effective. You're just going to have a bigger bundle, not as much airflow through those. So then what you want to do is you want to hang them upside down in the dry, dark place. So I remember years ago, people would hang their flowers in the basement. Well, a lot of basements aren't a dry place. They're a dark place. And you can forget about them, and it's just not the ideal place. What I would suggest is a closet, and a closet that you're not going into a lot right now because you don't want them banged, and because as they're drying, they're getting more and more fragile. And so I just do it in our guest room closet and hang things there. The other way that I like to do it is, those clothespin, I don't know what you would call them, a way to dry clothes on a square, and they have like a couple, it gradually gets smaller so you can hang lots of things on it, but the clothespins are already attached to that apparatus. It's a great way. I have one of those hanging on a hanger, and I just clip and spread it out, those different stems. And then you can even just put 2 or 3 stems on that clothespin when that's all you have. And it's a great way to quickly take care of that. Then when they are done, and we'll talk about what that looks like when they're done, a good way to keep them is wrap them in some craft paper and layer them in a clear tote, mark what you have, and then you can go back to it, especially because it's probably going to be, a few months down the road. Okay. So there is an alternative method for some specific flowers. This list that I have, these 4 things are not all inclusive, but they're the ones that happen most, often. Is bells of Ireland, and most people don't grow bells of Ireland, understand that. But if you do, celosia, hydrangea, and yarrow. I would think the most common for any of us is the hydrangea and yarrow. And that can be a little tricky because if you don't do hydrangeas well, they can look great when you pick them. And then when they're dried, half of them are partly closed and they're not full and fluffy. It's because you dried them wrong or picked them at the wrong time. So remember, we're picking them in the morning. They're at their peak. What I would say specifically for hydrangeas, anytime you pick hydrangeas, little florist, little tip here, is you take your very, very, very hot water. If your tap water is really hot, then that's fine. Or water that has been boiling that is no longer boiling. You take that outside with you. You cut that hydrangea and you immediately put that in water. There is little cells in a hydrangea stem that close up with a little bit of sap that you can't even feel. And that causes a hydrangea not to suck up water. And that's why those heads get wilty so quickly. But the hot water keeps that clear long enough for that stem to soak up water and be full on the top. So that's specifically what you want to do with hydrangea, not the case with the other flowers. But what you're going to do is you're going to only have a couple inches of water in that vessel, whatever it is, that pitcher, that bucket, whatever it is that you're using. And you let that water evaporate all on its own. Okay, you don't just leave it for 24 hours and then pour the water out and then hang them upside down. That's not the way you do it with these specific flowers. You let that water evaporate in a dry, dark place again. The reason being for dark is sunlight can affect the color of that drying process, those flowers. So you want to make sure and have it in a dark place and allow that water to dry, to evaporate naturally. And then you're not hanging them upside down. That's how they get dry, is in that bucket once that water's gone. Oh, way to the left. There you go. Okay, instead of bringing all kinds of flowers with me today and plants, I just thought I would give you some pictures for you guys to see. So on the left is amaranth. It dries fabulously. There's lots of different colors and varieties of the amaranth. Of course, all these that I'm going to show you are great fresh, but they dry well and are really fun. Artemisia, Artemisia, as we often know as Blue Mound or Silver Mound, things like that. I actually haven't dried Artemisia, but it was interesting that was on the list. Oh, we're going the wrong way. There we go.
Keyboard doesn't like me.
So of course, baby's breath, and we can grow baby's breath. I grew up pink baby's breath that is delightful dried. We're going to talk in a little bit about what we can do as far as color. That's going to help you out. So here's the Bells of Ireland, and they're fabulous in arrangements, but dried is what we're talking about. Okay, continue on. Is that the next one?
No, it's skipped.
I think what you need to do is make sure you're on this side of this little line here.
Oh, okay.
No, maybe not.
It's that, and then it says the celosia.
Okay, so there we go. So there's celosia, lots of different kinds of celosia, kind of like the amaranth in that way, but there's some really fun colors out there, varieties now that they didn't used to have. And then Crispidia, the little balls, there are little ones and there's large ones. They dry super easy. Some of these things are just really easy to dry. And what I would suggest you do if you're not growing them is just go to your local florist and buy some bunches and dry them. You'll be really glad you did in the winter, okay? Cress grows easily. Just get some seeds and sprinkle them. But what you want to do is you want to pick them when they have the pods on them. And those are lovely dried. And they're like a filler flower, that kind of thing, in an arrangement around a wreath, which we'll talk about. And the eucalyptus, all different varieties of eucalyptus dries so easily, and of course still retains the smell. Okay, the Frina is kind of like the what I just got them saying, can't remember. But there you want to take off that foliage to have that little bit of color there. And lavender, of course, that's probably really common that we will dry. Love in a Mist. I didn't show you the flower. I don't think there's any flower on here. Love in a Mist is a lovely blue or white flower, but then that little tiny flower turns into these large pods that are either green or have some color to them depending upon the color of the flower. And really easily dried, so fun in arrangements and on wreaths. straw flower. I did bring some straw flower. What I wanted to show you, straw flowers are easy to grow, but what I wanted to show you, of course, they come in so many different colors. Or that I didn't, where did I put my, oh, here it is. Okay, so straw flowers are quite brittle once they dry, the stem itself. If you're successful, these, I brought you some successful ones, but if you are successful like this, then you have this length to go with. But what you can do when you are not, or because you just don't want that whole stem, is you break the head off and then you use some wire. And you can have your wire, and you can cut this wire to whatever length you want to work with your wreath. And then of course you have the flexibility of the wire as opposed to the stiff stem. But there's so many different colors of straw flowers compared to some other flowers that you dry. And so that's really fun to be able to use that. All these pictures that I'm showing you here with her, and I put that in my resources, is the gal from Floret Flowers out in Washington. Yarrow, I specifically picked this picture because so many of us are used to yarrow as being only white and yellow. There is so many lovely colors and varieties of yarrow. There's this peach, there's the pinks, there's the purples, and they dry so nicely. And they're a whole cluster, which is really nice, especially like in Christmas pots. And statice, you really got, I think statice would dry just laying on your counter. I mean, it doesn't even have to be upside down. So some things are just very easy compared to others. Thistle, oh, I brought some thistle. So here is some thistle that I dried just the last couple weeks. I just love the funkiness of thistle. And like I said, at the end, I'm going to show you some things about colors. Some of these pictures are mine. I just couldn't resist taking a thistle picture with the bee on it. And there's so many different varieties of hydrangeas. But here again, the drying process that we talked about earlier. Okay, so there's poppy pods. Those are my poppy pods. So fun to dry, so easy. But what I also want to show you is when you're doing this, like in a on a wreath or something like that, is go ahead and cluster them together in some groups of 3. I don't know what you guys can see here. And then rubber band them or wire them or something like that, because just one here and there doesn't have the effect that 3 does. If you do the large poppies in June, what are the big orange poppies called? California poppy? Is that what I want? Those pods, of course, are much larger. This is just from the pink poppy, but just go ahead and group them together. And then Queen Anne's lace, I brought some of this. Of course, Queen Anne's lace, when it's bloom, is white or brown, or those different colors that they have, and it's always so lovely. I took a picture with a little bit of it in bloom. But look at what happens as it's done. It makes this fun. So what I think this looks like is years ago when I was younger, this is how some ladies' hair was in the back when they put it in a bun. And if you're older like me, you remember that? Like, this is what it looks like to me. But I just think it is so fun. There again, depending upon the size of the bloom is going to be the size of this. So very fun to use on a wreath and in some arrangements in the fall. That our last one. And then sedum. Sedum dries very easily as well. You want to take off that foliage, but this is just for my garden. So of course it's green right now. Wait till it flowers and it's getting to the end, and then that's when you cut it. Now, at least I think we show a couple pictures, and then I'm going to add some more practical things. Ideas. Okay, so here she is from Floret Flowers. This is not my basement. This is not my shed. I would love this to be, but look at that. I mean, how lovely is that? And then to be able to play around with that in the middle of winter. So she's got some straw flowers, some statice, some celosia, some different things like that. But you see those clusters, and she just has them hanging from the rafters and drying. So, and here's an idea for wreath. This isn't my wreath. I didn't have pictures of my wreaths that I've done, where this is just a wire wreath or moss wreath, and you don't even see the wreath. It's just all flowers. So some of my practical advice that I would give you, here's some, can't think of what I want to say this is. What is this? It'll come to me. A fun thing to do, of course, is wheat. This is bunny tail. Here's some, where's my millet? Here's my millet. Another really fun thing to do for different arrangements. But what I want to tell you about is when you do something like, this is lobelia. Why can't I think of what this is spraying them for color. So whether you want a very natural looking wreath for the fall or a colorful one for Christmas or in your Christmas pots, any flower, even when it's alive, which is crazy to me, you can spray paint, and you don't have to use florist spray paint. You can use your hardware store spray paint. It doesn't kill the plant, even alive. I've spray painted roses for people, certain colors that they want, and you just think, a rose seems tender. No, you can spray it. The criteria is that you're at least 12 inches away, so the, what is that called, that gas that's in there, such the P? Can't think of it. You don't want that to get on the flower. You want just the paint. And so what you're doing is you're lightly spraying it and then leaving it and then coming back and spraying it again. You're not just coating it close up in paint initially. That's what will bring the harm. These can be, once they're dried, I just picked these this morning, can be sprayed. The millet, any of these things can be sprayed. You just decide your color palette, set up a cardboard little, three-sided thing, and go and have fun and spray the things that you want. Because sometimes I want just that natural look on a wreath, and sometimes I want some color. The straw flowers is a great way to get that pop of color on a wreath, all on its own. But if you want some other color in there, you can spray any of these things and be successful at doing that. So I think that's all I have for that. Was there any questions that I need to answer before we go on to flower pressing?
I don't see any.
Okay, all right. So what I want to talk about with flower pressing, I would say in the whole scheme of things that flower pressing, look at all my precious poppy seeds on the table. These are hundreds of poppies.
Oh, that fell. Oh.
I know. I might have to scoop them up. For flower pressing, it's a little more trial and error. I would say if you follow the way that I'm talking about for flower drying, if you do exactly what I'm saying, there's like 95% you are going to be successful first time. With flower pounding and flower pressing, I would say it's some trial and error. And you're going to have to find out what works for you. And the reason I say that is because I've done it with groups of women. And some women start out and they pound too hard, or their cloth isn't clean, or they don't have the right paper, or of course, you have to choose the right flowers, but the right stage at that flower. All those things are factors. And so when I was doing it again, preparing for this class, I was reminded that, oh, that's right. My method has to be, to work for me. So we'll go through the list, but I'll just interject some things. So if you're doing it on fabric, you want a natural fabric, like 100% cotton muslin, all right? What you want to do is when you want it freshly laundered, but don't use any fabric softener. Use as clean a laundry detergent as you can, and then hang dry it. Don't even put it through your dryer. All those things are going to help that flower adhere to that and the color better. If you're doing it on paper, which we'll talk about, watercolor paper or handmade paper, I would say I've been more successful with handmade paper. That texture grabs the color a little bit more, but that isn't always true. If you want to use fabric, you cannot launder that towel or that shirt again, because the color is just going to dissipate. It's not going to last. That's the downside of this. But when I do it on linen towels, I hang them for decoration. So no one's wiping their hand on them. I don't need to launder them. But that is the downside of this, because the colors in flowers are just not strong enough. What comes through is that dye isn't strong enough to adhere to that fabric and stay there. So, but you can be a little more successful if you pre-treat it with alum and let that soak. That ratio I think is 4:1, and then rinse it, and that will help a little bit. I don't know. I personally don't think it's worth it because I just don't wash whatever I'm doing. But if you want to pre-treat it, you can. You want to use fresh flowers and leaves. They have to be fresh. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then either a hammer or a mallet. Now, all the websites and anything that I looked up said hammer or mallet each time. I have never been successful using a hammer. It's too hard, too heavy, too small. I think a mallet, a rubber mallet, has always been, anybody that I've seen do it, the best bet. And a light one. This is my husband, so I just need to invest in a girl one or something because I have to just be very, very careful. Okay, let's continue on. So you want to do it on a hard surface, like an old cutting board, a concrete slab, a marble slab, your island, something like that. It has to be hard, and you have to not be concerned about, banging it a lot. Some things that you want to have handy are some paper towels, some parchment paper or wax paper, some Scotch tape. I have paper towels twice. I have the bottom three twice. How did that happen? Sorry about that. So you want all those things just ready for you to be able to use. Okay, continue on.
There are some comments in the chat. A lot of people have tried to do it, and they're really interested in something that will last.
And that is not going to happen.
Nothing
really
you can
isn't.
talk
I
about.
mean,
yeah.
I have known some people who've done the class and they hairsprayed it or like shellac it afterwards, and it's okay. It's just not a dye. It's just not the way God made flowers, and so it's not going to be. But I will say, I'll show you a card that I made. I think this other way of doing things allows it to last a little bit longer than fabric. Okay, so I went through that. There's the 4 tablespoons for 4 cups. And then allow that to soak for a few hours overnight. Overnight I think is best, but still, for me, I didn't think it was that much of an improvement to purchase alum unless you already have alum. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to take your flowers, and I don't want to show you what I made yet. And you want to take your flowers and your leaves and put them face down. So obviously the front side of a flower, and set them on your paper or your fabric. If they're a large flower, you want to separate those petals and then just reassemble them. Okay, let's continue on. I'm trying not to say something before I get to my slide. Okay, you can use clear tape to tape your flowers to stay there, to tape your wax paper. I do not like that way. If that's the way you like to do it, then you do it that way. I like to I put all my flowers there, decide what I'm doing, and then just do one flower at a time. Take off my wax paper, then do another one. Because undoubtedly they move around when you start pounding, and that's frustrating to me. So I know all that I'm gonna do, but then I remove the flowers that I'm not pounding at the time. So that just works for me. So then what you want to do is you just want to use the old-fashioned wax paper. What I would say if you're taking any notes is when you use the wax paper, I'm not going to show you what I made yet, but so this is that natural paper. What you want to do is just cut the paper, the wax paper, for the size that you need. But after you've used this wax paper a few times and you have some flower residue on it, you need to get a new piece of wax paper. If you're the kind of personality that doesn't want to waste anything and, oh, use this little corner over here, you're going to be highly frustrated. Once you get some flower residue, you've got to start with a new piece of paper, because some of that flower residue, if you've taken it off and put a new flower down there and put it there, then this little bit that's over here is going to come over here on your fabric or your card, and you're going to be so disappointed. So gently tap over each flower and leaf. I cannot emphasize that enough, that you are gently tapping. This isn't a quick process, but I would also say that when you're doing it, it's gentle, lots of taps. You're not just gently tapping here and here. But when you're doing it, you're going to see that flower become almost translucent, and you're going to be able to tell where you hit even through the wax paper. I prefer wax paper over parchment because I can see that flower and tell what's going on, and I'm not going to over press it and over pound it. But you can tell where you've been and where you need to, continue to go to get that flower to be used. We're going to talk about the type of flowers that are best, and I'll tell you the reason for that. Start light, then increase the pressure. Work evenly, and that's why I like a large mallet as opposed to a hammer, because I felt like sometimes with a hammer, I was heavier in one place and another because the head is smaller. Where this, I feel like what you're hitting is even over a larger work area. You can gently turn the fabric, but just see if you've missed any places with the hammer. If so, you can do that again. I would say that's a little tricky to take your wax paper off, lift the flower, and see how you do it. I would practice on some pieces of fabric that don't matter. I have one that I just launder and I use, and then I use it again to practice with certain flowers. And I just watch where I hit, and I can tell where I've hit, so that I'm only removing everything one time. And it's the way I want it the first time I remove it. So, okay. And so carefully lift everything, and the pigment that's coming from the flower onto the fabric or the card is wet. You're kind of painting in a sense, just with a different method. So lift it, remove it, and let it be. It's still wet. It's got to dry. All right, so let's go over some good flowers to use. A lot of these flowers that we talked about, hold on. Go ahead. I went through this. I think I gave you the dry flowers for this. Continue on. Oh, nuts. Go ahead. Okay, you're gonna have to take notes. Or email. You can email Brittany for this list. I'm so sorry. I didn't notice that I had the same list twice. Okay. Yeah. So let me give you this list. The top one that works all the time, and it's lovely, is a pansy or viola. I don't know why, but it separates those colors and it looks amazing. You can see on this bookmark on the left. Look at that. I mean, it's just perfect. It looks so much like a pansy. And they're so easy to do, and they work the best. This list that I'm going to go through and tell you is, if you look at the characteristic of almost all of them, is they're a flat flower, and that's what works best. You can't use a flower that's thick, that has lots of layers. It's just going to be smush. The color is going to transfer, but it's just going to look like a blob of color. So, all right. So Coreopsis or tick seed. Lobelia, impatience is great. If you think of impatience, now I'm not talking about double impatience or rose impatience, just that old-fashioned impatience, that color. Maybe you can even put these names in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yep.
So pansy, coreopsis, lobelia, impatience, daisy. Now for daisy, I would say that old-fashioned plain white or yellow daisy, not anything that's thick. It's not going to transfer well. Cosmos. Here again, you have lots of varieties of cosmos, but you want that flat, old-fashioned kind of cosmos. Marigold, same thing. You want that flat marigold, not the varieties that are thick. The California poppy, the big orange one, the pink ones, all those work great. Gerber daisy, there again, that's a little touchy because some Gerbers are thick. So you just want to be careful with that. Nasturtium, which I didn't do that on this card. That's a lovely one. Primrose, vinca vine, a rose. Now, what I have found with roses is the roses that I grow in my garden that are pretty basic, those are the best ones. Not a rose that you're going to get from a florist. Obviously, those are thick and not going to work. Primrose does. Vinca, there for the little purple flower, but also for the vine. That works really well. Yes.
For the cosmos, could you use the vine too?
So it's funny how the stems of things you can try. Some stems work from a specific flower. I don't remember from cosmos. And I don't. Sometimes a leaf that I thought wasn't going to work worked. So you just got to do a little trial and error. Ferns work great. And so sometimes I just have the flowers, and as you can see, oftentimes what people do is they have the flower and they'll just put in a stem, or they'll put some kind of fern in there for some green. But a lot of stems do not, but good question. Petunias work, zinnias work, and then a fern. So what I want to show you is what I did just this morning. And what I did here for this flower pressing is I will leave the flower on this natural paper, and I'll put it in a 4x6 frame. And so these are little, is it called calibricola? The really tiny petunias. They work fabulously for just little clusters. And then this is the orange flower from a black-eyed Susan vine that you have in a pot. And they're just, I just did this quick just to have some, thing live to show you, so to speak. But it's really fun. And you can, as they did, you can put the names of the flowers if you want to. Here is a fun thing to do on a cloth with kids for them to give us a gift to mom or grandma. How fun is that? There again, they wouldn't wash it, but you don't wash your doilies very often. So I think it would just be fine. Let's go on to the next slide. I think it's another idea. Okay, so here, this particular person is showing pressing it on there on the fabric for a bookmark. You could certainly do that. I would prefer the paper and then do a clip, a hole, and do that for the bookmark. They're showing ironing on. You can do that. I haven't been very successful. I'm just being honest with you. So sometimes what you can see as pictures on the internet maybe look well, and then you actually do it and it doesn't work. So I'm just trying to give you my experience and what has worked and what hasn't worked. But when people have done this for me and given them as gifts, especially if I received them in the winter and knew that they picked them in the summer, I don't know, it's special to me. And I think it's a fun way, especially if they're your own flowers. And I think that might be the last one, is it? Yes, and then there's just the resources. So what I want to encourage you to do is try different flowers. Have your piece of paper that you can just make all kinds of messes on and see what works and what doesn't work, the kind of hammer, the kind of mallet that works for you, and then design your card, your piece of paper, your bookmark, your picture that you're going to do, and do it with a group of people. It's really fun to do that. So, is there any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. What I also just want to encourage you to do is when I've done it with groups of women, they've started out, whether they're doing mostly flower pressing, they're a little frustrated in the beginning because it's just coming out smushed. And it's like, oh, you can't even really tell that's a flower. Remember to use the flower list that I gave you. If you want to try and see if you can, make something happen, go ahead and do that. Just don't get frustrated that's not working, because some just aren't gonna. And other things, what I have found is over time, I get a little bit better at it. And then it's a lot more fun, like, oh, I can do this, and do that with other people, which is really fun. So
cool. Thank you, Tracey.
I think that's all I got.
Did you have a question, Jennifer?
I did,
on the handout, and
Yeah.
you could email Brittany and she could give you the handout, and that has the correct flowers for pressing.
so you talked about removing the,
I'll repeat the question in a minute.
Okay.
Removing the what?
removing the plant material, but then on the card you left. So my question would be, on the doily, obviously there's no plant material.
Right.
So you remove the plant material on your card, you left the plant material on it.
Because I'm gonna put it in a frame with glass over it.
Could you
Oh,
use, would it, if you let it dry some more and stuff, could it last even like for a card?
Okay, so what she's asking is if we're not just flower pressing and leaving the flower on there like I did, could you just overall leave this and would it stay? My experience has been that the drier this gets, it starts to flake off. If it's in a glass frame, that's not gonna happen. And so that's the only way that I do it like this. But when you do it like this, let me pull one off and see. It's looking dry.
They're so bright.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
See, they don't look, because I didn't make sure I got every little spot for this because I knew I was going to keep them on. So you would do it differently. You probably can't even see this in there, but you can see how it's going to make the orange shape around there. That's going to stay forever that way in the frame, but you just have to press it more, pound it more to get all that color, to come out. But yes, otherwise only under glass.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's gonna stay well. So.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much for coming,
Thanks
Tracey.
for coming.
Thanks everybody for joining us online.